Patson Rodrigo, who wants to speak. He wants to talk about Canelo and Chavz Jr. here on Leaving the Ring. You're live, brother. What's on your mind?
Hey, fellas. Chavz Jr., Canelo Alvarez. Has Mexican boxing gone commercial?
We talked about this last week. You know what, bro? I hate to say it, but good thing, though, we still have a lot of Mexican fighters out there that haven't gone commercial, but those two guys really have jumped shark. You know what I mean? It's, wow, we're sinking. If this is the future of our Mexican fighters, we're sinking really bad. Gabriel?
I got another question. Are the history books being somewhat stained and ruined by these paper titles and these especially like with Canelo winning as the youngest junior middleweight, taking that record from one of my favorite fighters when I started watching boxing is Fernando Vargas. You know, he beat the legitimate guy, a legitimate champion, you know, and he got the record. But now, you know, they gave it to Canelo, which is, you know, it was a catchweight, which he did meet against a welterweight with for a vacant belt. And same thing with Chavz now. He's the youngest Mexican ever to win a middleweight title. I mean, is this going to keep going? I mean, it's just kind of staining the record books, you know, because the record books, we have all these great accomplishments by great fighters, and you have things like this happening. It's just like, I mean, it just upsets me as a pure boxing fan, you know. So what's your take on that?
It's really hard to compare eras, you know. It's not like baseball, even though baseball's got its big asterisk with the steroids era. You know, things kind of get watered down with all the belts that we've had. We've had, you know, if you look back in the history books, guys weren't holding the WBA or WBC belts. You know, the belts had different names. There was the IBC, the IBA. There was other things, and they've kind of evolved over the years. I think at the end of the day, when you look at the resumes of fighters, you should be able to tell who was the best guy, who fought the most guys at the top level, who won the most fights. I think all those things will be real. And, you know, if people look back and say, well, Canelo was the youngest junior middleweight champion, they'll look at who he beat. Boxing is such a weird sport. It's not like any other sport. You know, you can look at the Lakers and say, look at how, you know, all their wins, losses, championships over this period of time, and it's accurate and it's fair because they played everybody. Whereas in boxing, not everybody fights against the same guys. So, you know, it's all about when.
Though in team sports, though, you can always say, well, yeah, you're right. The Lakers won this year, but the following year, when we got so-and-so, you know, it made either our offense or defense much better.
At 154, it's a little more wide open. And while I didn't like that catch fight with Canelo, for Hatton to give him a belt and take that away from Fernando Vargas, who fought tough people to be called the youngest junior middleweight in the world, or junior middleweight champion in history. It was a vacant belt, and a lot of people fight for vacant belts. How he got that ranking, I have no idea, because he was apparently a welterweight, and suddenly he was number one in the WBC. But, you know, Angulo's gone. You know, Vanes is right there. But there's no real clear person at 154 that you can point to and say, that's the best guy in the division. Nobody has that signature win or that signature resume right now. It's kind of a young division. At 160, it's just an absolute travesty that Junior was rated as high as he was and has a belt. But it's boxing. So, you know, travesty is in the eye of the beholder.
I'm going to put you back on hold, okay?
All right, fellas, take it easy.
For the rest of the callers, man, stay on hold. Don't hang up. We're going to patch you in on Leaving in the Ring. I know I see a couple of callers. They've been on hold waiting patiently, and we appreciate it, man. I really enjoy when we do have listeners call in and chop it up here on Leaving the Ring with us about boxing. I see a couple of callers want to talk about Floyd Mayweather versus Victor Ortiz. Still guys want to talk about Sergio Martinez. Other guys want to talk about Canelo and Rhodes. Don't move. 347-215-7598 here on Leaving the Ring. You can speak to myself, Dave Duenas, or my co-host, Gabriel Montoya. We're here live right now. If you want to talk some boxing, hey, let's chop it up. Let's patch in some fight fans. Jose, who wants to talk about the Marco Antonio Rubio interview. Brother, what's up? You're on live right now, Leaving the Ring. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to talk about that interview that you guys had earlier with Rubio. I heard Chavez, his next fight is going to be against Peter Manfredo. And, I don't know, everything that Rubio was saying about Chavez, the way he's being ducked by him and the way that they skipped him out of the title, shot and him beating one of the top contenders, it's just like outrageous, like the way they're pulling all this stuff on this guy. It makes me feel sorry for the guy.
He's like a champion with training wheels. Okay, we'll take him off in a few years, but just get used to wearing the belt. It's a little heavy, but don't worry, we'll help you hold it. But that's boxing politics. He's gold, man. He's got that name.
Yeah.
But I like what Rubio's doing here, Jose. I mean, I do like the fact that he's not, that's that saying, the closed mouth don't get fed. Even when Rubio did that open letter, I still was like, yeah, that's good, but put it in motion. He's being vocal about it, and to me, that's putting it in motion. You know what I mean? He's not just letting it be ink on paper. He's on that paper. He's actually putting a voice behind it, and that's sometimes how you get fights. You get underneath the skin of a fighter. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, Julio Cesar Chavz is still a person with feelings, and I don't care what anybody says. Criticism is a big blow. It's a big slap in the mouth. And when you hear another guy saying you're factory made, you're a champion that's being his hand held, that really takes a strike to your ego.
Funny that Chavez he's been criticizing Canelo over his title shot that he got. And I mean, he's doing the same thing. And like another thing, if he wants to build his own legacy, he needs to start fighting like the best competition out there. And like Rubio's there, and then you got Martinez. But like I don't know if it's a done deal or what's going on. But like I heard like on Mexican TV that Chavez's next opponent was Peter Manfredo, and I don't even think that guy's worthy of a title shot. Nah, he just I don't know. It's not.
It's an optional defense, which a lot of guys get, but it's just a win in the bank. He gets him some experience, and I mean, I think like the WBC, it's been doing that for a long time. This ain't new. Like what they're doing, like matching up, prospects against weak champions. They've been doing that for a long time, especially when it comes down to Mexican champions.
Yeah, but Canelo wasn't matched up with a weak champion because the guy wasn't a champion.
Yeah. It was a vacated title.
Right.
But then again,
it was not a vacated title. It was a stripped title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a ripped-off title.
Also, when Chavez Sr. when he fought for his title, he hadn't beat anybody either. He hadn't beat any of the contenders, but he actually did.
But he also didn't do it on HBO.
Yeah,
but he didn't do it on HBO, and they didn't take it away from a real champion in order to make that happen. There's a big difference.
I understand.
I know a lot of people use that. The Chavez Sr. argument, but this situation where there's actually a real champion, and because the network didn't want to, put that opponent in there, and so the guy loses his belt because he didn't want to go make a pay-per-view that nobody would want to see. They took the belt, gave it to Chavez Jr. or Chavez Sr. to fight for against that same opponent on the same network that didn't want that guy to fight on the network. It's two very different things. It wasn't on HBO. It wasn't a major fight in a major production the way that Chavez Jr. is kind of being foisted on us.
Right.
At least that's my take on it. I understand what you're saying, and everybody's got to start somewhere, but they're kind of marketing him as something other than what he is. And from that point, Chavez Sr. started to fight good people. And look at what Junior's looking
during his reign. He fought all the top guys. He didn't duck anybody. But I'm talking about when he won the title. He hadn't beat anybody. He was an unknown. He was actually the underdog. Like nobody even gave him a chance to beat Martinez, who was the guy that he beat for the title. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing that happened with Canelo. They just threw him in a championship fight.
I don't really agree. I think everybody picked Chavez Jr. to win because they knew this guy didn't have any power. He wasn't an established champion, at all. I mean, he was a paper champion. He was given the belt so that it could be given to Chavez Jr. when they fought in Los Angeles on HBO. Other people disagree, but I mean, to me, the proof will be in the pudding. And I was asked on Twitter just now how I think a Chavez Jr. versus Sergio Martinez fight would play out, and honestly, I think Martinez would wreck him like a crash test dummy. I think he would rip him limb from limb, and the fight would not last very long at all.
Yeah.
And to me, when you look at it and say, well, it's not fair, the kid's green. Well, if you're too green to wear the green belt, then don't put it on. Don't fight for it. Build up, fight some real contenders. Actually earn your ranking as a number one contender. Don't just use your dad's name to do it. That's how I look at Chavez.
Only time is going to tell us how good Canelo is, because he's got to fight the top competition now. There's no way that he's going to keep the belt without fighting anybody. And his next fight against Rhodes, it should be a good fight, and that should tell us,
I think so,
enough about Canelo, to see where he matches up among the other fighters in that category.
He's in a dangerous fight. I think that Rhodes guy is a real deal. He's been stopped before, but he hasn't lost in a while. And yeah, I would actually say that's, it's a pretty dangerous fight. There's a sense, at least among the Mexican community, the fight fans, that he's a little more real than Junior. I don't know how you feel, but it seems like that's how the Mexican fans are kind of looking at him right now.
Yeah, they look at Canelo as a real fighter, and Chavez is he's just carrying his dad's name. But I think Chavez could fight a little bit. He wouldn't be where he's at if he wasn't a good fighter.
Jose, thank you for calling in, brother. I'm going to put you back on hold, okay?
All right, thanks.
And we got Victor from Oxnard who wants to talk Canelo. What's up, brother? What's on your mind? You're on live right now and leaving the ring.
Right here, fine, bro. How about yourself? I'm right here calling from Oxnard, California, the capital of boxing, California, man.
Orale, brother. I'm doing great, man. What's on your mind?
At the moment of time of boxing, how do you guys see it? Do you guys see it more as a money sport, or as the older day of a fighter trying to prove themselves? Do you blame the media the way the sport is right now, or do you blame the fighters? Because back then, fighters, to be known, they had to fight big elite fighters, and we didn't have this many sources out there like internet,
right,
like all these boxing shows or boxing radios. All we had was TV and sports channels, and that's how they blew up, by fighting elite fighters that were at the top too, so they could be known, and that would bring in the money. What's your guys' opinion on that right now?
The evolving of time.
Yeah.
I
think, too, we glorify a little bit of the old time. I mean, fighters fought more often back then. The money was less, and they did, great fighters did take each other on, but they did it at the right time in a lot of ways that guys do now. I think we saw fewer guys, like Dave, you and I were talking about this last night.
Right.
These are two of the weakest Mexican champions, period, that I've seen in a long time on major network is, Saul Alvarez and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. They're two guys that have belts and then immediately say, we're not ready for the big boys. I've rarely seen that happen in my lifetime, to see a guy pick up a belt, call himself a champion, look at the other champion and say, you can't sell pay-per-views, which is kind of changing the conversation from do you want to fight him to, he doesn't sell pay-per-views. Well, Chavez Jr. doesn't exactly sell pay-per-views either. He's been on pay-per-view shows, but that's because HBO didn't think he was good enough to be on their network. I think things have been skewed a little bit. We lost Don King over the years, and so there's not that other superpower to kind of combat Bob Arum. Golden Boy is becoming that. They're not quite there, although they've got some really big fights, and they've had a hell of a year in terms of good fights. But I think now the sport has moved away from free TV and become more of a niche sport on HBO and Showtime. And so you've seen guys like Bob go, well, I'm gonna make my own pay-per-views, develop my own stars my way, and so they get more leverage and leeway because they've invested in their fighters. It's changed, like Dave says. It's the evolution. Everything changes over time, and I think the fighters are a little softer now because they fight less, and they make more money, so they want to take less risks because there's more on the line. It's hard to compare eras. It is what it is now. Certainly, I don't know. I'm not going to speak for Dave. As a boxing writer working in the industry, if the next 10 to 15 years is me watching Canelo and Julio Cesar Chavez take soft fights while denigrating great fighters like Sergio Martinez, I may not be a boxing writer in 10 years. I may quit the sport. If that's what our sport is, Mosley Mayweather, Mosley Mayweather to a lesser extent, but Pacquiao Mosley, and now this new Marquez fight against Pacquiao, which I think is just crap with paint put on it, and some nice lights over it. If that's really the future, I'm not particularly interested in being a part of that.